Fox News and all the right wingers that were at Delaney have been posting their clips apparently. This is one of the clips that they posted. Let's take a look at what they posted. Hasan Piker denies ties to Marxist millionaire after subpoena report.
Have any personal contact with Roy Singham or any of these other people? I mean, I know some of these people. They're wonderful people in general. They're activists. I don't know anything beyond what is readily available information, but none of it is actually hidden or illegal in any way, shape, or form. Fox News Digital says I have a subpoena, but I've yet to be served one. So I don't even know what's going on. Kind of feels like you guys have more insight into what the federal government's doing than I do, and I'm supposed to be subpoenaed.
There were clashes again.
Yeah. Bro, out of the whole interview, this is what they clipped. Does the harassment not really bother you? I don't know how you do it. How do I do it? I'm used to it. What do you mean? You just have to. What is this? To find an OFAC administrative subpoena, check your email inbox. I have. I don't understand what this person is saying. Why didn't you stream the rally, by the way? Miss seeing that? Because it was at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Your fans are just upset that those provocateurs is your new reality and hate to see you have to just eat it. Yeah, I don't think people need to baby me in this situation. I think that the interaction in and of itself shows how unserious the hecklers are. Because like we're in the middle of a fucking, we're down there in the middle of a protest, and my clear cut goals are to showcase not only the demands that are being made inside of the facility by the people who are being detained, but also the mistreatment of activists outside of the facility who are exercising their First Amendment rights. And that's pretty clear. Like, that's why I go to these protests. I want to show a side that the media, unfortunately, often forgets to cover and often forgets to show. And the reality is that if it's a relatively smaller protest, like with some activist organizations on the ground, as opposed to like a massive one, you know, like the ICE out of LA protests that we've attended, there is more noise coming from the opportunists that storm these areas, right? More noise that comes from the opportunists that storm the areas to demonstrate at the behest of ICE. And then also people who are just straight up unserious, right? At the end of the day, I went there, no security. I mean, the people that were around us were like Adam Hamawi's team. We didn't have any security, which was really interesting because a lot of the charlatans, though, they had their own security. Some of them were fucking armed, as a matter of fact. But March was right about you saying frame one of your stream plans was kind of a dumb idea. No, those guys were there the whole day. Those guys were there from the start. From what I understand, they were always there. They were there because they wanted to cut content. The Proud Boys were there too, but they had left by the time we got there. But look, here's the thing. We are standing outside of a concentration camp where people inside of that concentration camp are on like day 8, now day 9 of a hunger strike, right? And people that have been trying to elevate their voices of those who are unjustly detained inside of the concentration camp are being tear gassed every night, being brutalized every night. If you go there with the express purpose of farming clout by saying you love Donald Trump or you love, or, you know, to support ICE, to support the Trump administration's processes, and you have no care or consideration for the people inside of that facility who are just human beings, right? If you don't see them as human beings, you're less than an animal. It's repugnant behavior. But there is, I think, a deeper layer of hell that is worthy for those who go there with no interest whatsoever. Like people who don't even go there to be pro-ICE, and people who don't even go there to to protest against ICE, but not even go there for some right-wing purpose, but exclusively to be a nuisance streamer. Genuinely the lowest of the low, true parasitic behavior. The person who said I'm IRLing at the concentration camp was unserious and disgusting clip farmers. Basically, yeah. People who were like, fuck Dan Clancy. People who were like, oh, you shock your dog, all this stuff. Like, these people are deranged. They're just deranged, objectively. And they look deranged. They don't look good in this interaction. It doesn't end up looking good for them when they do this kind of thing. So just simply saying, like, which one of us looks normal in this process is usually fairly effective in denying a clip. I don't really, I mean, I assume that that's going to happen no matter what, right? But what was shocking to me was like the actual people. What was shocking to me was the people who were like, you love the Democratic Party, you love the Zionist Democratic Party, fuck you, you love Israel's genocide. Like, dog, time and place, man. Time and motherfucking place. Like, it was crazy that the ultras were like, hey, I see a bunch of fascists that are a bunch of fascist opportunists who are trying to make a mockery of the brave. You mean the singular person? There was like a couple that were yelling. To be fair, isn't what you're describing the same as neutral journalists showing up, though? Well, journalists have a duty to cover what's going on the ground. It's actually not bad to have journalists there, because the entire point of demonstrating outside of this facility is to bring awareness to the demands being made by those inside of the facility. It's to have your voice be heard by those inside the facility so they understand that there's solidarity, that they're not alone, that they shouldn't be scared in spite of the conditions that they're facing. And regular mainstream outlets being there, like, liberal or even right-wing outlets and mainstream outlets in general being there, is not necessarily a bad thing, because it elevates the salience of this issue, right? And a lot of independent reporters also go there to, cut footage in a similar vein. Sometimes that footage gets circulated through mainstream outlets, right? That kind of stuff is normal. What I'm talking about is people that are not there to showcase the conditions inside, or to express to express a political position at all. People that are just simply there to try to fire off a clip and gain clout off of it, right? People who are there to antagonize the protesters, to try to antagonize them, to engage them physically, knowing full well that the police has their back. Cam Higby is a great example of this, right? He's the PragerU guy who was like a TikTok right winger, and then he went to Israel. I mean, he's basically an asset for the state at that point, the Israeli state. He was there the night prior of our arrival. He was there and antagonizing the protesters that were outside of the Delaney facility, and even would roll up to them and pepper spray them. Like, he wasn't just antagonizing the protesters, he was also assaulting them. And he had an armed security person with him. An armed security person with him. What we assume is a, civilian security officer, right? He had a security guard with a gun when he was doing that, when he was assaulting people. And then they ran into the facility. They ran into the ICE facility. So they're getting protection from the federal government to directly antagonize and even assault the good, kind, empathetic people who are out there trying to raise awareness and bring attention to the plight of their neighbors being unjustly detained inside of this for-profit prison facility, right? This for-profit immigrant detention facility. The closest analog I can think of is similar to that. What's that? The Faz Baby kick streamer, the one who would just like walk up with his big guards and just like shoulder check people, and then his security guards would come in. Jack Doherty, yeah. Cam Higby is basically doing what Jack Doherty did, but as a right-wing agitator. Yeah. When you do that, you're just Jack Doherty. You go up to people and you antagonize them deliberately while they're in the process of doing something, while they're in the process of like protesting, knowing full well that the federal government, with guns, with body armor, with chemical weapons that they have deployed on the people that you're attacking, are going to protect you. You know? Offering him additional protection. It's just Israel tactics. Oh, for sure. For sure. No, this is straight up Israel behavior. Straight up. It's additionally shameful because this is taking place in New Jersey, which is supposed to be a sanctuary state. But of course, New Jersey voted for a, CIA governor. And when you vote for a Fed, you get these kinds of Fed-coded behaviors from Mickey Sherrill. Mickey Sherrill herself is not CIA, but she's besties with Abigail Spanberger, who is. She was in the Navy. But yeah. So it was, it was a shameful experience to be a part of, to see what the government is doing. We don't have any real justice, unfortunately. Shameful as far as, yes, I'm aware of the Lego drama. I'm going to fucking, oh my God, I'm going to watch the Lego drama. Guys, it's right here, okay? Dude, they're literally putting your neighbors in concentration camps and starving them and feeding them moldy food, okay? Can we fucking lock in before we start talking about the Lego drama? God damn, dude. Yes, the Lego situation is crazy. I'm aware of it, okay? I'm going to cover it. But just, can we please? Oh my God. Why isn't there a single governor who would even consider using their resources to protect protesters? They lie and they claim that they're doing this to protect the protesters, but they're not. Yeah, I should do moist critical style videos and be like, the human trafficking situation in New Jersey is crazy, so that people can fucking lock in for once. Jesus Christ. Anyway, yeah, the Gestapo situation is crazy. Or better yet, we got to get Moist to cover the Gestapo situation being crazy so people actually, so the coworkers actually fucking focus on it. Anyway, I know the Lego situation is crazy. We're going to cover it. I know. It's an interesting story. Let's start here, though.
Between protesters and law enforcement outside of an immigration detention center in Newark, New Jersey. NBC's Valerie Castro is on the scene with the latest. Valerie, good morning.
Willie, good morning. We are now entering day 10 of these protests here outside Delaney Hall in New Jersey. And overnight, things heating up once again between protesters and law enforcement. The crowd last night was met by state police carrying riot shields and deploying tear gas after protesters attempted to push over metal barricades that had been set up to create protest zones. Beginning at midnight, Newark's mayor announced a curfew for the area that will be in effect from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. going forward. DHS posting that the area was secured with the help of local law enforcement. This all comes after intense clashes Friday night, and earlier that day, New Jersey State Police stepped in at the direction of New Jersey Governor Mikey Sherrill to handle the situation while federal agents withdrew. The governor said she had hoped it would help avoid escalation, but things turned chaotic when police say protesters did not heed orders to disperse and tear gas was deployed. So far, at least a dozen people have been arrested as a result of these demonstrations. The protests were sparked by reports of a hunger strike inside the facility. Detainees there complaining of inhumane living conditions and spoiled food. Governor Mikey Sherrill says she has requested access to the facility so she can see those conditions for herself, but she says she has been repeatedly denied. She's also calling for the facility to be shut down altogether. Willie?
Valerie Castro in Newark, New Jersey this morning. Valerie, thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. And don't forget, you.
Anyway, so the point of sending in the state police is to provide an incident where protesters are in clashes with local cops as a way to marginalize them away from the Democratic Party base. This is a direct attempt to aid Trump. Yeah. Because if it's local police directed by the governor, the blue governor, all of a sudden Trump can wash his hands over the incident. And they'll turn around and they'll say, oh, well, we're doing this because we don't want Trump to brutalize the protesters. It's like, okay, but you're brutalizing them. Like, what you're doing is basically taking responsibility over the brutalization yourself. There's literally no reason for you to do this. Okay? There's no reason for you to do that. If you are the governor of a blue state, if you're actually the governor of a blue state, use your police force to protect, if you're going to deploy them, to protect the protesters. Fox told me they're eating gourmet meals in the detention center, but won't turn a camera on to prove it. Of course they're not eating gourmet meals in the detention facility.
Now you're seeing
the detention facility is a for-profit prison, which is, I mean, American prisons are already devastating, right? American prisons are already immoral. There's a reason why other countries like Norway, for example, have a non-extradition policy to the United States of America, because they consider the American carceral system to be so inhumane that they will never send their prisoners to the United States of America because they feel like it's a human rights violation. Okay? Now, that's just the American carceral structure across the board. When you get to the for-profit element of it all, the for-profit prison system is even worse because they are always cutting corners. They're for example, I'll give you one common example that's happening inside of this immigrant detention facility, right? This concentration camp. They have one doctor for the entire facility. They could hire more, and they should hire more, but doctors are costly. And if you don't actually treat the human beings that you are locking away as real human beings, then you don't need to offer them the necessary medical attention. Geo and CoreCivic are the two major for-profit prison companies, right? They are the ones who write the laws. They are the ones who literally write the laws to ensure that there are still mouths being fed because there are beds that have to be filled inside of their facility. So they write the laws to make sure that there is a more draconian system in place so they can continue making money. Geo Group very famously had an investors call right after Donald Trump got elected. If you recall, they talked about how Trump was going to be a major boon for them because Trump was going to do mass deportations. And mass deportations require concentration camps. That means they would fill their facilities up. They would be able to justify getting billion-dollar contracts. That facilities cost to the federal government, as Adam Hamawi, who's running for Congress right now, explained yesterday, is $10 million a day, $15 billion a year. Hiccups? I don't know what's going on. I'm not experiencing it. I'm not seeing it on my end. So it's terrifying. It's totally morally repugnant. It's unbelievably unjust. But that's America. So yeah, I'll always respect anybody that puts their body on the line to go out and address this inhumanity, that goes out there, stands outside of a facility like this to demonstrate, to try to offer a little bit more coverage to the conditions inside of the facility when these for-profit prisons are actively trying to ensure no one gets to see what's going on inside. That's also part of the reason why I have no respect and straight up disdain for those who go down there for their own clout farming purposes. It's disgusting. Dude, go be a nuisance streamer elsewhere. You have the entire country to be a nuisance streamer in, and there are so many other places where people do it. Like, don't do it here. Don't fucking do it here, man. That's how is that even possible? Like, I just I actually don't understand it.
Is calling for de-escalation after days of demonstrations outside Delaney Hall, an ICE detention center in Newark. The governor ordered state police to take over operations outside the facility as pro and anti-ICE groups continued to gather Saturday. The move comes after clashes between protesters and police, who established a security perimeter around the area. The governor saying she does not want to give ICE a reason to expand its operations in New Jersey.
I refuse to let that happen in New Jersey. I will not give ICE a pretext.
Yeah, I won't give ICE a pretext. So I'm gonna ensure that they don't have to do anything because I'm gonna do it myself. That's basically what the meta is here for this blue state and its new blue governor. This is the centrist wing of the Democratic Party, ladies and gentlemen. This is what happens. I didn't want you to fight me, so I just punched myself in the face, you know? It's great.
To expand operations at Delaney Hall or across our state. I will not put lives at risk.
The protests have been underway since May 22nd. Activists and Democratic leaders allege the roughly 300 people detained are living in poor conditions and aren't being properly fed.
I support democracy and I support the freedom to speak, the freedom to gather, the freedom to live. And without having to worry that you're going to get kidnapped off the street by somebody in a mask and a uniform.
On Saturday, police stood between opposing groups of demonstrators outside the detention center.
The message here is that we love and we respect immigrants who come here and show love and patriotism towards the country. But if you want to immigrate here, there's a right way to do it.
The Department of Homeland Security is pushing back on claims about conditions inside the facility and denying reports that detainees have launched a hunger strike.
Yeah, except they're not, because Tom Homan did openly admit that they are, and he said that he would actually force feed them with tubes. So I don't know why ABC 7 Chicago is covering what the state is saying as though it's God's honest truth. And they even had that like classic agitator wearing a Persians for Trump shirt too. He went to the protest to be in support of ICE. And it's one of these things that like is one of those takes that is commonplace and is disgusting, honestly. When they're like, oh, why don't these guys come in the right way? First of all, they are. Okay? Half of the people that are detained by ICE are people actually seeking asylum. They have court dates. ICE actually knows where they are. They go to their homes to grab them, or they go to the court dates to grab them, as a matter of fact. These people are not illegal. They're even grabbing American citizens at times too, but I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about like all of the non-citizens that ICE grabs. The overwhelming majority, well, first of all of them, every single one of them that is grabbed off the streets is not like a criminal in any way, shape, or form. They have a civil case with the federal government to get their paperwork. So they're waiting. They're in the process of waiting out their paperwork so they can, work. Many of them also have TPS, temporary protected status, that is revoked on a moment's notice like this in an effort for the administration to justify higher numbers of mass deportations. They're grabbing people with green cards. They're grabbing people who are legal permanent residents for their speech. This is not a normal process at all. And the way that the administration is trying to justify it is totally ridiculous, is bullshit. Okay? I'm not even doing some like, oh, no human is illegal style commentary here. I believe that. I think it's ridiculous to be like, oh, these are illegal human beings. Fucking stupid. But that's not even the argument that I'm making here. Like, most people don't understand how this process works. They don't get it at all. They don't understand that this is an unbelievably costly process, and it could be expeditious, and it could be cheaper for the government, and it could be better for our taxable revenue too. Okay? The only reason why there is this lopsided, totally broken processing system in this country is so that we can keep these guys in legal limbo. And when right-wingers come in, we can just show, the right-wingers can just show how ruthless they are to offer red meat to the base, because they're not going to fix your fucking cost of living issues. This administration certainly hasn't done that. As a matter of fact, they've made it worse. But as long as they keep people occupied with this senseless cruelty by cordoning off and kidnapping and possibly deporting American workers that have been working on U.S. soil for decades at a time, with the hopes that one day this immigration system will finally do the right thing and offer them the clearance and the proper paperwork, and maybe even naturalize them, right? While they're doing it the right way, the administration is the one that's saying there is no right way to do this. Yeah, it's an ethnic cleansing campaign. People are explicitly being hunted for their language and skin color to keep America white. Yeah, the thing is, that's the goal. That's the purpose. But they're not fully realizing that either. Just so we're clear, because if they were doing that, they would be going to the fucking factories. Which they did initially, or the farms, which they did initially, or the hospitality industry, which they did initially, and they backed away from that. The reason why they backed away from that is because they recognized fairly early on that, yes, undocumented immigrants or non-citizens in general who have the proper paperwork that normally would still be considered deportable because they're black and brown are actually the backbone of key sectors that keep this entire process going, and that's necessary labor. So they're just trying to keep up this environment. That's why I say it's red meat for the base. It's not to deny the white nativist underlying ideology here. It's not to say that this isn't white supremacist. It absolutely is. But just make no mistake, the ultimate purpose as to why they're doing any kind of mass deportations is to keep their base satisfied, to tap into their primal instinct after years and years of farming this outrage and anger and hatred and making it seem like the non-citizens that live amongst us are the actual enemies of America and not just regular people, right? Not just overexploited regular people, as a matter of fact. But yeah, it's incredibly cruel. And Democrats have absolutely participated in this process. They voted for the Lake and Riley Act. They voted to fund ICE further and further when they were in office, when they were in charge. And some of them even continue to do so while Trump is president, right? It's disgusting. And I want to change that. I want to change that system. And part of that, aside from demonstrations, aside from doing everything you can to change this dynamic, part of that also revolves around getting people elected who will make a big fuss. Because when you're a congressperson, you have a lot of power. You can go and look at these facilities, for example. When you're a congressperson, you can also caucus with other members of Congress and demand to reduce the expenditure to ICE, reduce the amount of money going to ICE, demand accountability for ICE. This is how you're supposed to do it. I know it sounds ridiculous. You're like, whoa, there's no guarantee. And the Democrats themselves are doing this as well, which is true. And that's what I'm trying to fucking change. All right? It's not a one-stop shop. It's not a silver bullet. You don't just vote for the right Democrats and magically everything is solved. That's not how this goes. Okay? But every bit helps.
Of Homeland Security is pushing back on claims about conditions inside the facility.
Anyway, here is the anti-ICE chaos erupts as governor points blame to national extremist groups.
Welcome back. Anti-ICE protesters raging out of control. Tensions boiling over outside the New Jersey detention center.
The story is not the far left activists continuing to rage at ICE in New Jersey. The story is the real story is the horrifying conditions inside of this facility. Okay, and the governor acting as though she's powerless to put a stop to it, and using what power she does have to basically work alongside the MAGA movement, alongside the Trump administration, because these are state troopers in anti-riot gear on horseback. These are state troopers that are brutalizing New Jerseyans, okay? And also Associated Press reporters and numerous other people. I'm begging you, I'm in so much pain. Injured Associated Press photographer Angelina Katsanis yells at New Jersey State Police as they refuse to let her go to hospital for a knee injury she got covering anti-ICE protests. This attack on journalists went on for 4 minutes. They're doing Israel shit. They're doing Israeli occupying force shit, okay? It's disgusting.
Democratic Governor Mikey Sherrill backs their cause and refuses to point blame. Watch.
New Jersey law enforcement established a peaceful, protected protest zone in the area outside Delaney Hall. We know that people from outside the state have been interfering in the protests and escalating them. National extremist groups have become involved in the protest here today. To the people coming from out of state to create chaos and dangerous situations, you should not be here. You know, I don't recall seeing any violence from protesters. I'd have to look back.
Our next guest served as the director of removals for ICE in New York State. Tom Feely joins us now. Tom, Governor Sherrill there is literally admitting the loud part out loud in saying that these outside groups are now coming, but they're coming because they're being paid in many cases to support the simply no deportations of any kind, not even for criminal illegal aliens. Do you think that this is all on her?
Good morning. Thanks for having me, Griff. Yeah, somebody might want to get the governor a mirror because these elected officials want to go out there and stoke the flames about laws that have been on the books since 1996 and signed by President Clinton. And, you know, then when it gets out of control, which it always does, we've seen this playbook so many times, they want to point fingers at ICE. And, you know, somebody really needs to get her a mirror because her and the mayor up there are responsible for these actions.
Tom, you are the former director of ICE removals in New York State. I want to address the root cause. So these politicians, and it's not just Governor Mikey Sherrill, it's also Governor Senator Cory Booker and Andy Kim and a handful of members of Congress. They are saying that the conditions are so deplorable in there. Talk to me, because I've been inside ICE detention centers. Talk to me about the standards of ICE detention centers.
Like, how can you be? Here's what I don't understand, okay? I don't understand how you can be so fucking heartless that you look at the conditions inside of those facilities and you do propaganda for the government that's doing this. Okay? I truly, truly cannot comprehend that. Like, where is your fucking humanity, dude? Where is your goddamn humanity? How do you become this person? How can you be so fucking heartless? How can you be so shameless? I mean, this is no different than Theresienstadt, right? The sanitized concentration camp, the sanitized ghetto that the Nazis utilize. And this one isn't even the sanitized version of it. These guys are just straight up lying at the behest of the government. And it's not just the government, but it's also a for-profit prison. You're lying at the behest of a corporation whose entire job is to make sure that the federal government continues to grab people off the fucking street, regular people, good people with dreams, with hopes, that are playing ball with the federal government with the hopes that one day the government will actually do right by them, right? You're treating them like criminals. You're lying about how they're constantly doing violence and constantly doing crimes and whatnot. And yet, the reality is the exact opposite. It's the federal government that's doing crimes, the federal government that's doing the violence. I don't know. It's really fucked up.
ICE has the highest detention standards in this country. The number one important thing for ICE is the care and safe removal of ICE detainees in our custody. I know all the employees. I know the managers. We have a new ICE director in David Venturella, who's very professional. He's an expert in this area. We take it very seriously. And for these complaints and whatnot to be thrown out there like they're true, I can tell you, having done this for 30 years myself, many of the complaints you see are unfounded. Everything is investigated. ICE is probably the only entity in the United States that does detention that is constantly inspected.
Well, okay. Show the people then. I mean, it's simple, right? If that's the case, then let's get in the facilities. Transparency, right? This is the most transparent administration. It's a lie, guys. It's a fucking lie. The conditions inside of these facilities are heinous, and they also transport some of the immigrants from facility to other places to hide them within the system on purpose. If there's any like high profile immigrant rights activists, for example, they will literally actively move them around away from this facility on purpose so that even their legal counsel can't find them.